Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you for our first event after the summer. And for those who are not there for the first time, as you can see, I'm not Philip. He cannot make it today for the personal difficulties. So let me introduce myself. I'm Lukas Richtecki. I'm a CTO at Applifting. And my job is to make your project successful. The topic for today is the art of the perfect handover. And this really resonates with me because I remember a few years ago, I had to take over a fintech project. And it was like, something without documentation, microservices. And every microservice has been named by character from Kung Fu Panda. Really, I'm not joking. So instead of user management, there was Mantis and so many characters. But back to our topic. So the agenda for today is that we have two lightning talks. One would be taken by Honza and second by Pavel. After that, we have 10 minutes break to refresh ourselves and so on. And after that, we jumped to the panel discussion. We have two guests today from the Adastra. Both are Ondřej, so you can enjoy their experience. After that, there will be some space for your questions and answers, and we close the evening with the drinks and the food. So that's probably all from my side, and I welcome Honza on the board.
Hello. Let me just switch to my presentation. And let's start it off. Good. So, hello and welcome everyone. I'm Jan Růžička. I'm a solution architect here at Applifting. And today I'm going to have a brief lightning talk about how to take over a software project. So suppose you need to take over a project from a colleague that's leaving your company or from a vendor that you will no longer be collaborating with. What could go wrong? First of all, there is the big problem of the possibility of a lost knowledge. The fact that some of the knowledge that the former team had gets lost in the handover process. Usually that is, those are the little details such as how to actually run the app locally on your computer. For example, a few months ago I had to take over a project where there was a backend, front-end, database, everything Dockerized, and I spent about 3 man-days trying to get everything running on my local machine because I had to figure out what sort of properties I need to configure, where to get the credentials for external services, and so on. And ultimately, that translated to just 3 man-days essentially wasted on or due to a poor handover process. And the biggest issue that you may get into is that you somehow take the project or take it over, the former team leaves, and you end up in a situation when you essentially have no one to ask about how a certain feature works or how to just get the project running or how to release it. And that ultimately translates to delays in feature development, more bugs, and essentially just negative business impact on the customer. So the question is, what can we do about it? How can we avoid ending up like that? What I would recommend and what I use quite a lot is a handover checklist, which is just a document that outlines and lists everything that needs to be transferred from the old team to the new team. You can create it in a Google Sheet or an Excel, and its purpose is mainly to ensure that nothing is forgotten in the handover process. It's shared among every party involved, so anyone can contribute and add a thing that, in their opinion, should be transferred and should not be forgotten. Also, it serves as a record of the handover status, so that any time during the handover period, you can look at the checklist and see how much or how far we are in the process. And it creates a basis for acceptance of the handover, so that once everything is checked, we know that we have transferred everything we were supposed to, or that we took it over. Here's an example of a checklist, let's say, template that I use on projects, and that has proven to be quite useful. Usually, in my experience, it's just a simple table with a bunch of columns. Activity is let's say, the thing to do or to transfer, to hand over. A little description to outline the details, an assignee, which is the person responsible to do the handover or to hand over that particular item, and a status column to just keep track of whether we've already went through it or not yet. Here we can see obvious examples: repository access, sharing test scenarios, release process documentation. But I would like to point out one thing that, from my experience, is very often forgotten, and that is offboarding of the former team. I think that there is probably just one project where I really got offboarded once I stopped working on it. Usually, I still have access to even projects that I stopped working on 2 or 3 years ago, and it's nice to, from time to time, check out how the new developers are doing, what commit messages they make, if they are taking good care of the project and of the code that I wrote there back in the day. But generally speaking, I would just emphasize to kick out the former team as soon as they don't need the access, or at least emphasize that during the handover. It can be just one more item in the handover checklist. Another tool in the tool belt that is quite useful is handover session. Just an hour-long meeting that I organize once per platform or per technology, one for backend, frontend, Android, iOS, and so on, and where the old team and the new team get together and they discuss the code style, the code structure, as well as the release process of the apps, and most importantly, how to run the apps locally on any developer's machine. Here I highly recommend the session to be recorded, because it has proven to be an invaluable source of information for me later on, because when you are the new team just trying to orientate and get familiar with the code base, which may be quite large, it's hard to remember everything from the 1 hour intense session. So a recording is incredibly useful later on when it's just you on the project. That's, I would say, the must-haves, or the let's say, practices that I really push and enforce every time we take over a project. And here are a few ideas to take it a step further. We also one time did a hybrid team workflow when we worked, or the new team worked side by side with the old team. The new team was developing new features, resolving bug fixes, and getting code reviews for their code from the old team members. And that way, they got a very good idea of the code style, and some of the, let's say, misinterpretations were resolved in the first few PRs that they submitted. And it was a great way for them to get really onboarded on the project and get up and running. Also, and very nice thing to do that can prevent the project from being a bit badly handed over is a supervised release, where as the new team gets all the release notes, all the release documentation, they try to make a release to production under the supervision of the old team. And that way, once you go through all this, you go through the checklist, you went through the sessions, the new team worked in a hybrid manner with the old team for a month or so, and they also already did a release to production. So after all that, I would say that the new team is in the perfect position to take the project over and without any delays or any troubles. So let's wrap it up and summarize everything we've talked about. So the ultimate handover recipe is create a checklist, organize the handover session, share the checklist with all the involved parties so that everyone has access, check all the items in the checklist, and then just accept the handover. Thank you for your paying attention, and that's all from my side for now. And at this point, I will hand it over to our next speaker.
Thank you, my assistant. So, it is okay right now? Yeah. Cool. So, good evening, everyone, again. My name is Pavel Schreiner. I am Android Tech Lead at Applifting, and I will continue in our lightning talks because every coin has two sides. My lightning talk will be about the situation when you are working on your project. Let's say for several years, you perfectly know the code base, you can be really effective and fast with the implementing of new features, and suddenly you realize that there will be like end of the project and you should hand over to another team. You can you have several options. Like first option is that you will be not prepared on the handover, and probably the guy which will took over the project will hate you. But we want to do like differently. And first of all, we need to mention that what's the motivation for the prepare on the handover project. Our motivation was, for example, because we are caring about the client experience, and handover is probably the last milestone in the cooperation with our client. So it is pretty important to make a good impression, because the client could go back to us in the future with a new project, and we can cooperate on more projects if he will happy with our work. Also, if another development team is taking over the project, they will see your code quality. So you will make the impression, and it could be good impression or bad impression. And I have one experience. It's not specifically a handover project, but it was cooperation between our team and the client's team. And it was when I was implementing the security library for one of our banking clients. And the guy which was integrating this library on their side, we were in touch for some time. He reported some bugs, we fixed them, and after some time, when we opened hiring for the new Android developer, he applied, we had an interview, and currently he's more than 5 years one of my colleagues in Applifting. So that could be like a side effect if you make a good impression. And also, if you will be ready on the handover, it means that you are ready on the onboarding of new members in your current team. Because, like, let's say that handover project is like process which is like in one time you are onboarding and offboarding a lot of people. So yeah, that could be also important. I was thinking about our previous handovers, and in the recent years we had a couple of them on mobile development. One of them is, for example, online therapy from HDP. It was like that we created the first version of the application, and then the client handed over and maintained the project internally. It was the similar case with the Webflow, which is the last screenshot, and it is fintech from Karlín, and we took over the project from the previous software agency. We add some new features, and then we hand it over to the client, and also them they were working internally and maintaining the application further. And probably the most famous one, it is Kubova English, and it was like classic example of effective collaboration because they had idea, they had audience, and they had some budget. And so we start to cooperate and establish the development team and also the testing team. And after some time, when the first version was published, they just decided that the maintenance will be also internally. So we helped them to hire new mobile developer and also take over the project. And it was really successful one. I will start with some obvious things because after these handovers, we learned some lessons. And the first one is that if you want to be ready for a handover, you should really resolve all your open merge requests because like if someone new will jump in the repository and he will see, yeah, there are several open merge requests, what should I do? Should I do a code review? Should I close them or merge them? So it's better to resolve them. And also because a lot of applications are like created by software agencies, and they usually have some project templates, which has some like features features, and you don't need to use them all for some application. It's good to like explain it that it's unused or delete this part of code or just a whole module, because for the new people it could be really confusing why this is here and how it is used in the application. And also obvious, update all documentation and describe all important processes, for example, release process. I also had the experience that one of our project which we took over was, there was a really interesting release process because they had some like unusual CMS, and they just created a video, which was great because they were explained everything. About the documentation, I would say that's a starting point if you are new in the project. I'm like searching something about architecture, like I will be able to like orient in the code and like know how the code is structured. And it could be some diagrams, videos, documents, or for example, it's good to describe on Android your build variants and flavors, what is their purpose, and also, for example, what you should place in your local properties to be able to build the application. And one of the important part of documentation could be also architecture decision records, which is great because you share not just the present context of the application, but also the context from the past. It is like the list of different decisions which you did, and you described why you picked this library and what was behind this decision, and it could really help the new developers to understand your code and also like avoid the same mistake which you did in the past, and they could like better and faster make a decision in the future. This is like a small example how it could look like. It could be in Confluence, in Notion, but I prefer to have it like all in the repository. And so this is in Markdown. It has some like status. The date is important because sometimes it looks like that the decision was bad, but if you realize that it was done several years ago, it was actually like the best solution at the time. And you will just, or you should just describe the context and describe your decision why you pick, for example, this dependency injection framework, and then optionally describe some consequences on the project. So we already resolve our match request, delete unused code, update our documentation, and now the handover process is starting. And we should like save some time for the communication between the current team and the future team. So just be prepared on the questions, and as Onza already mentioned, it's great to record everything or have it in the written form, because two reasons. First, you can prove the client that you handed over the information to the new team, and also if they will be in the future onboard the new member in their team, it will be useful to have it in the written form. And also it is great to consolidate our credentials and access to the app and the external services in one place and just like share with them. And we prefer also that if we prefer that our clients have the access for the external services, so they are responsible for the permissions and they maintenance the access. But sometimes it could happen that Honza has still access to the past projects. So this period will end, and then how to end the handover? I recommend that you can ask for the feedback. You can ask for feedback on the whole process or on your code base, because it's like it could be really beneficial if someone experienced with the fresh eyes who is checking your code give you some feedback, and it's like totally different opinion than maybe you have on your code. And then you can just enjoy the feeling that you can rid of the domain knowledge and responsibilities that you had on the project. That's all. Thank you for your patience.
So thank you. Okay. So thank you guys for your shared experience. It's a pity that let's say the creators of my previously mentioned project didn't know that before. I could know that how the Mantis is integrated to Kai or another service, right? So let's take a 10-minute break, and after that we start a panel discussion on the stage. Enjoy the drinks and the food. Yep. Time has come. Ondra by Ondra. So as I said, we have two guests today, Ondra and Ondra. So it will be easy to target them from Adastra. And yeah, Honzu and Pavla, you already know from the lightning talks. So I've prepared a few questions for you guys. And Ondra, so if you can take a mic. My first question would be, have you ever experienced an ideal project handover? If so, how was it?
It was if I did.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you did.
Never.
If you don't, pass the mic.
Never. And I don't think it's possible, but
Is a question to me also
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm named Ondra? Yeah. Honestly, I didn't experience it all too, but I was handing my project to other guys, but it was not to the client, it was to a colleague who worked on that. So do I need to describe it now, or we will talk about it later?
Yeah,
Yeah,
can,
it was-
I guess you can describe
Okay.
the
I'll describe
good
you one
things.
use case which I had maybe like a half a year ago. We are maintaining a client's app, and it's a gambling app, and we had just the Android part, and we didn't have the iOS part because it wasn't, I don't know, supported by the iOS at the time or by the Apple, and the legislation changed, and we had to prepare the iOS part, and we went the way of the Kotlin multi-platform, and I had to change my code base a bit to prepare it for the iOS developers so they can work on that. So that's my part. Like, I had to do some refactoring to the new multi-platform technologies, and also I had to onboard the iOS developers. So it was very interesting in that way. And I think I can talk about it later if it's too long for now.
It's totally up to you.
Okay, I can maybe describe. I saw your presentation; it was nice. You just said everything which I would say, maybe even more. So I think I feel like useless now in compared to you guys. So yeah, like maybe I can describe it more in detail about technology. It was just an MVVM application. We shared the view model with the iOS platform, and I had to, when I started, the project was written in Eric's Java, and I had to rewrite the coroutines and change the networking side from the retrofit to Ktor, and Room has become the multi-platform at that time, so it was kind of like a leap of faith, but it worked. And we shared the whole view model. I had to do a lot of refactoring, but it was in the time of like reducing the technical debt, so I think it was fine. And I had to hand it out to my iOS colleague, and I did that the way that we documented the whole view model public API, so my colleague knew what she should call at what time, what she should consume, because there was a state flow that for creating like UI and some side effects for navigation and that kind of stuff. And we also prepared like a series of tickets describing each feature with the product owner, because there were some changes in the design and maybe a bit of behavior, so we had to document it. And I think it worked well, I guess. Like, I don't know how to honestly measure that, but I think, yeah, thanks. These are my clients. No,
We have the metric, right?
So it kind of worked well. I think Tatiana wasn't, I don't know how to measure that, maybe amount of VTFs per minute. And I thought that there were not that many, I guess. And yeah, so, but it was nice. She worked remote quite a lot, but in that handing out phase, she worked on site. That was nice because we had those meetings, where I could describe her the code base features, what she need to do. There was some kind of nice clean code, so she knew what to do, and it was kind of manual work for her. And yeah, so it was, I guess, fine. Do you have any question to me? I described my whole input in the first answer.
Thanks for your experience. Honzo, do you have anything to add?
Maybe we'll come back to that in the future.
I have one question for the previous panelist. And how many WTFs per minute is too many?
I think when she has to call me 3 times a day and ask me about some problems in the IDE that, oh, Xcode has updated and there's problem, it doesn't build, or that kind of stuff. And maybe if she doesn't understand the view model part and that what she needs to do. And yeah, I think if I have to call her too many times, it's a problem for me because I can work on anything else. So I hope I reply to. Is it
like 10 WTFs per minute?
Maybe the time spent better is a day, so maybe let's say 10 VTFs per day.
I think it's a pretty solid metric, right? Paul, do you have anything to add? The second doesn't work, or you need to on it? Yeah.
Now?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
works.
good.
Do you want to continue?
Yeah, I can mention that I have experienced a nice handover once when we were handing both mobile apps to the client who wanted to make their own internal team. So we basically did everything I talked about during the presentation, and at least from my point of view, it went nicely. The guy who was taking the app over was just starting out with Kotlin. He was learning it as we went, and he previously did, I think, web development. So the first PR that he created had like 50 comments from my side. So I one time got a feedback from him that I'm cruel. So I suppose that it might have been a bit stressful for him, but overall I think it was handled very nicely.
Yes, and we were afraid if we can discuss more than an hour on this topic, and I think that it will be pretty much okay. So, like from my side, I think that I have like several experience when we took over the project, and usually it was bad experience or it was just complicated. And I just need to say that also some project we just like cancelled because also there was a situation when the client already like stopped cooperating with the previous vendor, and there were so many red flags, and we have no one to ask for our questions that we just like cancel the cooperation and just step out the project. And I think it was a good decision. And when I am like thinking about the handover project, I realized one of our present project that is from, or it is startup from Great Britain. And when I was checking the code base, it was like so bad that I was like, this cannot be done by the professional developers. And we are working on it for almost 1 year, and it's still bad, but it's better. And we also add some new features. But there is like amazing fact that it is working. It has more than 10,000 paying subscribers, and it's like magic for me. So yeah, sometimes it could be really, really interesting.
I think it's a pity you should mention the mutation in the views or something like this.
And there is even an internal joke here at Applifting regarding this project, because when we took it over, we were sort of comparing which part of the project is worsely written or poorly written, whether the mobile apps are in a worse shape than the backend, and there was this this competition. And our backend dev back then told us that I was there as a mobile dev, so that he told us that we have nothing to complain about, since at least the code in the mobile apps is organized in classes.
It's organized. I think it will be
Yeah,
enough.
it's in classes.
Yeah.
So
It's better than nothing, right? Okay, thank you. My second question would be, what's your ideal project onboarding experience, or if you could describe your not your personal perfect experience, but when you onboarded someone into project and it was like, you know, smooth and everything was like prepared, was the ideal process?
For me, it really depends on the size of the project. Like if it's a small app or small software project, small code base, then a handover session and a checklist is enough for me, and I can get going pretty easily. But if it's something a bit more complicated, for example, if it involves some hardcore security, cryptography, encryption, science tokens, and so on, I usually appreciate someone being there for me at least 2 weeks or a month, just to answer my questions regarding why is this token encrypted, why do we need to use nonce everywhere, and so on. So I would say that, yeah, it really depends on the scale of the project and on the complexity.
Yeah, what's your ideal onboarding process or your experience? And it could be like you've been onboarded or you onboarded someone.
Maybe I can extend that experience we had before. On that project, we didn't have much of the documentation, but the onboarding was mainly made because based on some Confluence pages we had about setting up the Kotlin multi-platform, ID, like Android Studio, and what are the usual problems, troubleshooting, and how to set up the access to our libraries and that kind of stuff. So we had this onboarding for that developer and the others. And well, yeah, you said it correctly, maybe like 2-3 weeks. It was tough with her, like to onboard her, but then she was kind of too, how to call it, like she worked well on herself too much. So I was kind of afraid that she's doing something that she shouldn't do or something like that. But I was checking the code review, and the iOS colleagues were checking the code review too. Yeah, so I went away from that question to some place where I shouldn't be, but whatever.
It's an open question, so it's totally up to you.
So usually I'm part of like internal onboarding and offboardings. So it's not like going somewhere to some client or talking to them, but internally it's always like the best thing for me if I have access to the person who was working on it, or they have access to me if I'm like trying to onboard someone. Because from my experience, it's the easiest if I just let the person, let's say, sink into the code base, just like try to explain them at the beginning, as you mentioned, like one session, to just tell them, okay, this is the project, this is how it works, this is what we do here, this is the end goal where we're trying to get. And then usually if the person is working for some time on it, and I'm just there, you know, in the same office, and they can just ask me, hey, why did you do this? What's the reason for this? I can still answer them. I understand this is not perfect in any world, because if I'm not there, the knowledge is gone. But at the point when we don't have documentation, which for a lot of projects we just don't have it, this is the perfect thing in this imperfect world, how to like handle it, let's say.
Yes, for me, like if I'm onboarded on the new project, I'm just glad if I have some time to like check the code and have the access to the repo. I'm usually checking the documentation and try to orient in the code base. And I'm like more the type that can continue in the same architecture, in the same testing strategy. Even like I don't prefer to, hey, this is different what we are doing. We need to change the architecture and totally write the app to be successful. I don't like this approach because if you try more architecture approaches, it will show you the advantages and disadvantages, and you can be like be more precise when you are choosing the architecture for the next project. And so we usually, or I had the experience that we were creating the Android SDK with Redux architecture, which is pretty unusual for the mobile development, but it worked. And it was just a great experience. So for me, I like when I can like go through the code and then prepare some questions for the creators and like discuss the reasons why it is like this, and like if there are, for example, these architecture decision records, it's great, but I never faced them like during the handover project, unfortunately. So maybe in the future, I will hope.
And did you have an architectural decision record for the reason why you were using Redux?
It was like fancy at the time, and someone was thinking that it is a good idea to try it because he never tried it before. So yeah, it was a good idea, but he just left the project and I took over. So yeah, but it was okay. It was pretty similar to the MVI, which is like modern at the time. So yeah, it was great experience, and MVI for me was pretty easy to orient then.
Okay, guys, thanks for your shared experience. It's really funny that you are bitching about the Redux pattern, because like this pattern is like the Flux pattern, which is like established, I would say, in the late 80s, and it's still like being used, and I'm pretty sure it's implemented in like Android under the hood, but it doesn't matter. I'm just curious that none of you mentioned the pair programming. Maybe call me old-fashioned, but like in my experience, one of the best way how to onboard someone is just like jump together and like sitting in front of same computer or same screens and like coding together for the hours, because it's one of my experience faster the way how to be on board.
Yeah, it's maybe because I never faced face-to-face like the previous development team. But
You're right.
It is always online, so yeah.
And do you feel like it's efficient to spend so much time together doing pair programming?
Yeah, totally. Yes, it is, because like there's one fallacy for people come up regarding to the pair programming. They think, okay, you spent all 8 hours like both sitting in front of the computer. That's not true. You spent like some time. It could be like like 20% of the implementation time of the task. So you could be sitting in the morning after the stand-up, for an hour. You left it for another 4 hours or something like this, and you jump in front of, instead of doing asynchronous code review, you jump into in front of a computer together, or it could be shared screen, and you do code review together in 30 minutes or 20 minutes. It's much more efficient than doing asynchronously and doing ping pong with, like there's like, 10 comments, change your code. Okay, next morning after the coffee, you reply to your, messages. Okay, I'm going to change that. So you wait another hours and hours. So it's much more efficient to jump together and do it together.
Oh, I see. Initially, I thought that by pair programming, you refer to just like two guys sitting together for 4 hours straight. I didn't think
that's not actually true. You can be sitting for 1 hour and let let the knowledge sink in. Onboarding, yeah.
Okay, in that case, it makes sense. And I did use it, but I just didn't know that it fits the definition of pair programming.
I see. And if you are scared about two people sitting in front of one computer, it could be, there is mob programming, so there could be 5 or 6 people sitting in front of one computer. But that's another league. Okay, my next question is, in your opinion, what is the red flags on a project when you see, okay, if in the incoming near time I would be handing over the project, like it's bad. You know, like what are the red flags that you see? Okay.
I think it was already mentioned, like when the code style or the code quality is really bad, you have the option to opt out and don't work on that project. I think that the code quality is like a part of the documentation of the code. If it's written well, maybe sometimes don't need to have a documentation.
Well, regarding the code quality, I feel like it's also a code smell or a bit of a red flag when you look at a piece of code and you can already tell who from the team wrote it. That you can see the different code styles. And it sometimes happens to me that I look at this particular piece of code or this function or class, and I already can tell who wrote it, and then I use git blame just to check, and I'm right in most cases. But that's, I would say, a failure of a code review. These sort of things should be caught in a code review.
Ideally by the linter, by my opinion, but yes, that's something
well,
that should happen.
It does not necessarily just need to be about the indentation or just whether you use a trailing comma or trailing lambdas or not. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes just
unnecessary decomposition.
Unnecessary complexity of the code, sometimes I would make the code, let's say, a bit more generic, a bit more reusable, and because it wouldn't be that difficult, and it's just apparent from the class or from the function that it would be quite useful to make some of the values a parameter that could be replaced in the future. But it was not done that way, and I can recognize those patterns already.
I see, that's a very good point.
And also another red flag that I can think of right now is the situation when someone comes and decides to use a fancy framework or technology just because they want to try it out. It's great when you do this on a large project from which you cannot really take it away anymore once you put it there.
But it's not going to happen because you do ADR, as Pavel said, so you should be fine, right?
Yeah, you can make an ADR that we chose this framework because it was fancy at the time and we wanted to try it out. So if any future team doesn't like it, feel free to get rid of it.
For me, the reflex is that if the previous team is not there yet and the client just searching for the new vendor, and it could be the reason that they're like the previous team like leave because of some like miscommunication on problem between them, and it also could be because of the client is kind of toxic. We had the experience with that because we have like first meeting, he was like describing the project, describing the previous vendor, and he blamed them like really hard, and it was just because they don't have like some leader or product owner of the project, and the developers get just the task, like the description of the application. They received the design and it was all. And after some time, then check the result, and it was totally different than the idea of the client, and they just blamed them. And like when he was talking about more and more, I was like more and more sure that we don't want to cooperate with him. So then we just like honestly said that it was not just the mistake by the previous vendor, but it was like primarily mistake of the wrong team management, and like their responsibility was like bigger than they was thinking. And he was glad. He said thank you and probably tried a different software agency.
Hopefully.
Yeah, from my point of view, I remember some projects that we got. It wasn't that many, but I remember when I just get the code or anything in like a zip file, and just they tell me that this is it, and I can continue. So that usually feels like there is something wrong there. I don't know, like what happened with the previous people, if they just burned the building and this is the last thing that was left. And I think the other one that was really weird, when we get the scope of the app, we like understand what it's gonna be, we still don't have the code, and then somehow I get to know what kind of budget the client is talking about, and I'm thinking, okay, we already spent this one just talking about it. So I'm not sure if it's like miscommunication between us and them as just like on a business level, but it feels like maybe the client has some different thinking about what it actually can cost, the like software project. So yeah, I think that's the like biggest red flag that I was part of.
Anything to that, Andra? You're good? Okay. Thanks, guys. My next question is that what would be your arguments for to spending some time on documentation and let's say something like a handover readiness of the project itself? Because it's not just about the documentation itself, as we said, for the stakeholders. Because who is paying, then ordering, right? So.
I think that when you're talking to stakeholders, and it doesn't really matter what the topic of the conversation is, you need to always talk about the business impact of the changes or of the agenda that you have. So for the documentation, I think you need to emphasize the impact of missing documentation on the business. That is, if there is just one person in the entire company who understands this app, who is making you money, and if this person leaves, well, how are we going to maintain it? It might affect the cash flow. We might introduce quite a lot of bugs just because we, or the rest of the team, doesn't really understand how it all works. The bugs cause the end users to be unhappy, and it incentivizes them to go to your competition. So even from the business side, it makes sense to invest the money into just being independent of any of the members on the team, so that no one really has this sort of like very unfair advantage of being irreplaceable on the project and having all the knowledge just for themselves. And also the better documentation also implies that it's easier to scale the team up when there is a big push for feature development. And it also sometimes happens that the client doesn't care that much about money, they just want to meet the deadline really badly. And it happened to us quite a few times recently that in fact the deadline was the biggest priority. So in such cases, when you have the docs ready and the readmes are there so that any new members can onboard very easily, then it's easy to onboard new people, have them for a month, and then offboard them and scale the team up and down as necessary.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right about being able to scale and put more people on a project, but usually with us, it's the most important part with the client is that they just need to have the app ready at some specific point. That's the deadline. It has to happen that point. And I was always thinking, okay, the documentation can wait, then we're going to do it after. But there is never after. There's always something else that needs to be done. The documentation is always something that you can overlook. Okay, you know how to do it, just do it, continue, we need the next feature. So lately I was starting to think about this in a way that just documentation is part of what I do. So it's not going to be the next thing, that's just part of what I need to do. I need to implement the feature and I need to document it. Until I do it, I'm not done with the feature, which means that it's not something extra, but it's just something that I'm gonna be doing, and therefore it's easier for us to just start doing it this way instead of telling, okay, this is the implementation and there's gonna be the documenting part. It's just part of the same process, which makes it easier, I think.
And have you, for example, used some AI tools to generate the documentation, or do you write the documentation all by yourself?
Usually it's much easier to just write it by yourself when you're actually implementing it, because I tried and I saw documentation that was generated ex post, or someone was just like implementing something, maybe even using the AI, and they just say, okay, whatever this does, just describe it here in this big comment that's bigger than the actual function or whatever, and just thinking they're done. But usually it creates more problems, because when you actually read it and trying to understand, it puts more confusion in your head than just understanding what it actually does. So I did it a couple times, but after some time I actually realized that it's not the good thing, it's worse usually.
Yeah, I've read a few of his code reviews, and he did that for some time, and it was really like tiresome to read. Also the documentation of a method which was just generated, and he didn't read it, like. So yeah, it was like doing documentation for doing documentation. No added bonus there.
Yeah, I think that Honza covered it pretty well, and in the correct order. The first negative motivation, then positive motivation, and usually it's part of technical debt, and we are trying to like educate our clients and tell them like, yeah, this is like necessary to like have part of development, and we know that it costs some time, but the benefits could be like easily mentioned, and usually after some time they are totally okay with it, and I think that we just need to educate them and tell them that it's not just the writing of the code, we need to also like care about the code.
Also, I feel like you don't really, when you're implementing a new feature, you don't really need to have a separate task or a separate story just for creating documentation. You can already, when you're estimating it, just like add half a story point or so, just to cover the effort on the documentation, and consider it part of the story implementation. So you don't really need to tell the client, well, in this case, we're going to write the documentation, so 2 more story points.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we have some let's say enterprise level project that we do end to end, and usually for this kind of projects, customer experience is much like higher than comparing to for the startups, for example, and they expect that like in their acceptance criteria for each sprint is that like, you know, documentation is updated. It's not something that you are going to update after 2 years when you are handing over a project. No, like in acceptance criteria, there's usual stuff as, you know, end-to-end tests and like, you know, some regression tests and so on. But like also the documentation is up to date, at least for the handed over epics or stories in Jira.
And does the client check it every 2 weeks? Like, do they manually check? Yeah, they did update the documentation, so it's okay.
I can confirm that I know clients that they do it every 2 weeks, or every after review, which is usually 2 weeks, as you said. My next question would be, when you do such a handover, how do you know it was successful? You end the project and you hand it over to customer or customer's team, right? How do you know it?
Yeah, first thing, you can ask for a feedback. You will like see what they will give you as a feedback, and also like if the process was successful, you can see if they are like reaching you again with another questions and another questions, which means that you probably should add something in your handover project because you missed something and they need it. But if you see, for example, I don't know, Kubova English, like the project is great, their investment was back after 1 month in public release, so it was like a really good work and also handover. And yeah, I think that we usually ending the cooperation that yeah, you can ask for some check if you will need or discussing some new features. We are here for you. But if you do the handover project like correctly and you will try to don't forget on something, they usually are okay. It's working, and you can just like lost the attention of for the project.
I might add that in case of Kubova English, what we did was that when the new team took over the project, guys from Kubova English, I think they still ordered a bit of capacity of the former developers just to do code reviews. So the former developers were still around, just doing code reviews and approving PRs, which is another, let's say, nice way to smoothen out the handover process.
Thanks.
And as for the metric for a successful handover, I would say that if no one from outside the team can tell that there's been a handover, then it was a good handover. If there is no impact on the performance of sprints, if no one outside of the team can tell, then it was successful, I would say.
Can confirm that? Ondro?
It sounds really good. As I said at the beginning, I was never part of this process, so I'm really envy all of you that you have been in some capacity part of like perfect handover. And yeah, I think I remember one that sounded like this because we had like 1 month overlap with the like other dev team. We were open to questions, they never had any. It was complete silence. It was like, that's perfect because they know everything, they understand the code perfectly. That's like the best case scenario. And after the month, I remember that we still had access because the offboarding that you mentioned never happened. So we still saw like all the Crashlytics and Firebase stuff. So we saw how the app started crashing about something that was not implemented yet by us, but they were supposed to take it over and finish it. They never did it. And we were just like proactively asking, like, maybe you need some more information about this because we specifically know what it is. Maybe we shouldn't see it, but we still see it. Do you want help? Nothing, no communication. So that also was like, I guess the client or the customers did really notice it, that something happened, but I mean, everyone else in the business didn't really see like nothing happening, so it sounded good, but it was the worst possible case that could happen.
Honestly, I haven't experienced the perfect handover neither, but I've heard about that we have a React Native department with us, and they were implementing or they were developing e-commerce apps in the Canada and USA, and the client or one of the clients they made their mind that they want to develop it in-house. So we like transferred the development there, and our React Native guys were like supervisors, and they did code review. They created the team there, and they were kind of tech leads there for some like transition time. Yeah. So it was like what you mentioned in the presentation before about that.
Okay, thanks for that. And what's the usual size for, or maybe the shortest or the longest size of this kind of let's say handover period? Is like in weeks or months?
Yeah. From my experience, the shortest one was when I just had 1 hour call with the former developer, and that was it. And I got the code. I got the access to the repository. That was the shortest, and the longest was about 2 months. Because the former developer was finishing up some work, and they still had their contract active, so the handover period was 2 months. Enjoy the drink.
Yeah, I think that the period could be like it could have a different length, but it's about how frequent the cooperation is. Usually, when you are starting, that you are asking pretty frequently, and after some time, you start to be confident in the new code, and then you will time to time. It's great if you can still ask the previous team. But it starts to be like that it's less frequently, and then yeah, it could belong several months, but probably after 2 months you will not have like a list of unanswered questions, so it will be like more okay.
Well, it depends on how much the former vendor collaborates with you. We once had an experience with a vendor that I think they were a bit pissed that a client was leaving them, so they were not very cooperative. And our shared Slack channel was just full of messages starting, hi, and the guy from the previous vendor was, their CTO was called Vincent, so every message in the channel started, hi Vincent, could you please, hi Vincent, could you please? And
That's the red flag.
what's the red flag?
Yeah, like, you know, like, because he's not responding, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I mean.
And one time we even noticed that we wrote him a message where we tagged him, he was inactive on Slack. Then once we wrote the message, the little, let's say, little bubble next to his profile icon turned green for 10 seconds and then turned back to white. So we knew that he was aware of our messages, he just didn't want to respond.
It was just a classic scene. Yeah. Vice?
And you are right that it was a red flag, but it was too late, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. In my experience, I would say one of the longest handover was like something like a year. It's like sounds like funny or crazy, but actually that's pretty usual use case with our customers. When we build something end to end at the very beginning, because like, you know, like on enterprise level, come up with like team with the proper experience, being ready on the same time, like takes a year in hiring, you know, like, so they usually customer use us to build the initial software that could be for 1 or 3 years or something like this. And during that period, or after 2 years, they started to hiring their own team. Yeah, so during that, I would say 1 year period, I think it was with Bank ID. That's nothing like, you know, secret or confidential, because that's in our case studies. They started hiring their own team, and during that period, we started, let's say, like our people started disappearing from the team, and they started appearing in the team, and so it, like, this year period was pretty smooth, and it was something, as Honza mentioned, that like when we left, I would say the velocity was like lower, obviously, because like 2 people or 3 people left, but like there was nothing, you know, like no hidden knowledge or let's say undocumented knowledge or something that no one from the current probably Bank ID team would be able to, you know, fix it, change it, or understand it.
Yeah, it reminds me one of our clients, and he like they have a first version of the application with like it was from another software agency, and they were not satisfied with the cooperation. So when they try to rewrite the application, the second version, they want to avoid the vendor lock, and they hire 2 software agencies to cooperate on the project. And then they realized that, yeah, we should have internal mobile development, so let's put like a third part in the development process. And it was okay, because like there were good developers, and it was kind of working. And after some time, they decided, okay, maybe we have internal team already. Maybe it will be enough to have just one software agency as our partner, but it just never happened. We have like still there one of my colleagues for more than 2 years, I think, from this decision. So yeah, sometimes it could happen and it could take long.
If it works. don't touching the code, nor the team. My next question is, what would you recommend to a person who is tasked with taking over a project and that's unhandoverable in state? Like you know that this project is you cannot hand over it because like it's in horrible state, and when you left it, like there's no knowledge, nothing. What would you do?
Can he opt out from that project, or does he have to do it?
Let's say that this question would be from someone from the audience, and you, as an expert, should give an advice. Let's say the good advice, I would say.
Multiply the estimations.
Yeah.
That's what we did one time, and that's also the reason why one time I had a velocity of 17 story points per sprint, because all the tickets had this multiplication factor accounted for. So there was no ticket with a scoring less than 3. Because we were already afraid of touching a piece of code and breaking something completely else elsewhere in the code. And yeah, like if you need to take over a project which is in very poor state, I think the most important thing you need to do is to communicate it with the client. If it's the situation when you're taking it over from the previous vendor, then you need to tell the client, it's really in a bad shape. We cannot confidently take it over. Please, like, go to the previous vendor and give them a pep talk. And we did it on one project, and well, the client tried to force the previous vendor to create some sort of documentation. It did not help that much. Since, for example, we wanted to know what sort of entities or what sort of data the app works with, what it stores in a database, what each of the columns in each of the tables actually means in terms of the business logic of the app. And what we got was just a list of tables in the database with a list of columns and a description that there is a name column, it's a varchar, and it's the name of this item. And that was it. So I would say that you just need to communicate it as much as possible, so that if the previous vendor had some sort of capacity left ordered with the client, then you can agree on, for example, refocusing the previous vendor to finishing the documentation rather than finishing some of the features that they were supposed to.
Or maybe if there's a way to create a new app or something to consult it with them that this is like unbearable, there is unbearable technical debt, and it might be better to do it again. But it depends on the budget and on the client.
That's a very nice way of just throwing, or saying, throw it all away and let's start from scratch.
But sometimes it's the best solution, but like client doesn't want to hear that because he doesn't have a budget for that.
Yeah, I once had this idea as well, but honestly I was not able to figure out a way to explain this to the stakeholders.
Yeah, I had the same feeling several times, and usually their argument is, "Hey, it's working. We have subscribers. We have some profit. Why you want to like rewrite it from the scratch?" And it's pretty difficult discussion. And usually it was like no way. Like we invested a lot in this application. It's kind of working. We know that it's not best, but you are professionals. You should like improve the code base. And it should be a great application. It's your work, and yeah, it's like hard discussion.
I think it's almost impossible to talk the customer into throwing everything away and starting from scratch. But what worked for us a few times is to just agree on like refactoring the app piece by piece, screen by screen, for example. And that way, for example, the customer wanted a bunch of new features. So we said, okay, this new feature would be, let's say, 3 story points if there was no technical debt. But since in order to implement this, we are going to have to refactor this and this and this, so for that reason, it's going to be a 5. So we added this sort of, let's say, extra price to every new feature developed. And as part of the new feature development, we refactored a bit of the existing code. And for over a year, or after a year, we managed to just have the entire app refactored. It was not a big app, but anyway, like after a year, there was very little technical debt left.
And I forgot one thing, that if you want to rewrite it from the scratch, you need to know how it should work. And we face the situation that the client have the application, it has some profit, but they don't know how it works and how it should work. Because they lost some like technical people from their side, and it was like, yeah, you cannot rewrite it because we don't know how. So we need to like analyze the current code, which was pretty tough.
Yeah, and maybe it depends on where the knowledge of the code base is. If it's with you, it's easier. If it's with some other dev team, it's like you can't do that. Like, or you would have to discuss it with the client and make the new, I don't know, tickets and all that flow.
In the story that you described, like the clients didn't lose just technical knowledge. They didn't have the domain knowledge. They didn't know how this particular feature is supposed to work. I mean, there was a feature where in the settings you could somehow switch between various weight measurement systems, and we observed a bit of a strange behavior there, that you switched, and then the conversions from pounds to kilograms and vice versa, they were sort of strange, and in some place the conversion occurred, in other place it didn't. So our QA asked the client, like, how is it supposed to work? Maybe we misunderstood something, maybe we don't get the app, we don't get the product as much. And it was breaking news for the client that this, let's say, feature or a bug is there, and the client themselves didn't know how it's supposed to work. So that's, I would say, next level lost knowledge, when you lose the technical knowledge and the domain knowledge as well. You just have paying subscribers, but don't really know what they're paying for.
Yeah, a couple times I actually also remember that we actually had more knowledge about the app than the client itself, because they just didn't know what it's doing, but they knew that we always knew. So why change anything? Because that's super comfortable for them. It's also pretty nice for us, because we are the ones making the calls. We are deciding what's going to happen because we know how it should work. Or we just tell them that that's how it's supposed to work. And they say, oh yeah, that makes sense, if it makes sense. So it can be pretty nice for the developers, actually, if client loses this knowledge.
Yeah, so you don't need the client. You can just like be a concurrence for them.
Exactly. Client is there just to pay for it, but we are doing what we want.
My last question is, guys, do you think there is like difference between handing over a project for a startup or let's say enterprise level? I mean, because like one of our biggest customer is Erste Group, or Česká spořka, which is part of the Erste Group, and that's, I would say, their requirements for let's say some non-functional requirements are a bit different comparing to some startups. On the other hand, I would say we have startups as a client that are on, let's say, enterprise level. I would say mainly because of some regulation in financial section and so on. Do you see some differences? I don't know, maybe Honza, if you can compare Kubovka to some Erste project. Because I consider Kubovka being still a startup.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like, I mean, in case of startups, I feel like there is this big push for feature development, and in many cases, the startup founders are not so sure what features will, in the end, be most appreciated by the end users. So they really want to bring as much or as many features as possible and see what works, what the users like. So as there is this big push for feature development, the code standards and code quality tends to be lower than when you're on a project for, let's say, Erste or a bank of that size, where you discuss things such as how much coverage should we have? Well, 80%, that's too low, guys. You need to bring it up to at least up to 90%. But on the other hand, when you're handing over or taking over a startup project, there is, in most cases, at least one person who knows everything about it. You can ask them anything about the backend, the apps, the business, and they can tell you straight away how it works and why it is implemented the way it is implemented. On a corporate project, it happens to me quite a few times that you ask a question and you get an answer, well, that, I don't know, maybe Yogesh from another team might know, so let me check with him and I will tell you. And then Yogesh doesn't know either, so we need to ask someone else, and then you have a hard time just finding a person, and in many cases there isn't any person who has the high-level understanding of how it all works together, which I would say is another red flag. Because there should be at least one person who knows on the high-level perspective how all the pieces fit together and make the puzzle.
Yeah, I think that there is a big difference, but unfortunately it's starting to be smaller because of legislation requirements. For example, this MiCA requirement, which we are currently solving on one of our projects. And it's like doing from the startup, it's doing like corporate project, because you need to like document a lot of stuff. You need to like have a higher like security standards, and it starts to be pretty close to the banking project, even if it's not released yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been part of some handover from the corporate client, and I can also like acknowledge that it was the worst meeting that I ever had, when there was like 15 people, and when I ask a straight question about why something works this way or why it was decided this way and if it's required, nobody knew, but everyone had something to say about it. So we were talking 15, 30 minutes about something, and I didn't get any answer, but they felt like, you know, satisfied that, oh yeah, no, that's okay. And I was like, but can you answer this? And then it started over again. So I don't really feel like I want to be part of handling or taking over a project from corporate environment, because I feel like I'm going to spend so much time useless there and not getting any information. I don't really know how to extract the information from the corporate environment, let's say.
So no more notes, experiences? Okay. I guess I'm done with my questions. And it's time for you. Yeah. So, any question from the audience? Sorry, it was the second.
Thank you. I have a question. When I'm like client, and let's say it's in the handover process at the moment, and it's from first vendor to the second vendor, and they start to like disagree or something like that, what I should to do before what I have to check, or I would like to ask both sides about that it will be like smoothly.
Do you mean how to tell who's right? Like whether...
In the phase, yeah. But before, what I can do before that it will not happen actually. What I should do exactly know before. And then if it's happened, what I should do after.
You mean to avoid any disagreements between the two vendors? That's a tough question. I feel like the let's say disagreement between the vendors is unavoidable. I would say, like they're just like in a team, it's hard to avoid conflicts between individual team members. I think for you as a client, it's almost impossible to make sure that there will be no disagreement between the two vendors, because in many cases it also depends on the personality of the people there, because some people like to bitch about any code that isn't written exactly the way that they like, even though the code quality is not that bad. So I think that, well, if you are moving from one vendor to another, then probably there is a reason why you're dissatisfied with the previous vendor, and then I think that you should invest the time into getting to know the new vendor. For example, what we sometimes do is, before a client decides to go to us and choose us as the new vendor, we do some sort of a, let's say, analysis or audit, and we tell the client, well, we have discovered these issues with the code, and the client can already tell if we're just bitching about not using the latest best tech stack, or if we are pointing out that there is a big security issue that may actually influence the client's business. So I would do this sort of pre-check of the new vendor, and then once they prove to you as a worthy partner, I think you can trust them from that point on.
Because like me, like a client, I'm just stupid, not technical guy who wants up, right? And then when they start to disagree, and one side will tell you my code is the best, and the second, no, it's not. It's exactly hard to judging them, like when you are not technical. So maybe probably it's good to take another side who are also have some knowledge and make them like a moderator or
Yes.
yeah.
Perhaps
Is it
some kind of transitional manager. It
Right.
will definitely help, and they would provide the framework or
Okay.
some kind of checklist or something like that. And the boundaries of the framework will create the environment which might not be conflict free, but it would definitely help. And of course, formalize the process, have the checklist, have everything about the code. Have a list of how the code is written and what are the sorry, oh, thanks. What are the principles the code is built in and everything, and it will definitely help. And also have a shadowing period, or the pair programming, so that the both parties work together. It would definitely help. Yeah.
I think that you also let them like explain what are the advantages or disadvantages of their solution, but in non-technical way. So like the impact on the project and other like consequences of their solution. And I believe that it is pretty hard to like decide who should be preferred, because you are switching on the different vendor because of some reasons. So it would make sense to prefer the new one, but the old one has like better context of the project and better understanding. So this is like tough decision, and probably to like connect some third part makes sense.
Maybe one more thing that came to my mind just now is that even though you are not non-technical and you may not understand the ins and outs of what the two vendors are arguing about, I think it's important for them to explain to you what the business impact is. For example, I try to do this with every customer that is not non-technical, and I try to explain to them what some of the even more, let's say, technical and advanced tasks are about. For example, one time I was supposed to just implement a thing called obfuscation in an app, and what it basically does is that it takes the compiled code and it renames everything in the bytecode so that it's hard to reverse engineer, so that it's hard for any user that just gets the file of the app to reverse engineer their way back to the source code that you paid a lot of money for and to clone your app. So to show this to the customer and to explain to them why they are paying for this, I even took a screenshot of the non-obfuscated bytecode and obfuscated bytecode of the app and showed them on one slide side by side and showed the customer, well, look at this code. You can already sort of tell what it does. It's sort of related to some users. You can see the suite from the names of the variables there. And on the other side of the slide, there was the obfuscated version where there was just A, B, 1, 2, E, F. And I told them, well, just try to figure out what this does. You can see that it's far more complicated, and that's the benefit of this. So I think it's very important to explain these technical tasks to the customer, even though the customer is non-technical. I think it's not wasted time. I have some continuous discussions with some of my colleagues here, whether it's worth spending our time on, and I think it still is. What does our CTO think about it?
I can confirm that.
Yeah, you can? Okay.
Totally. Because like everything is about the money, right? Anyway, so like I think it's important that like customer understand like the impact on the business, because like we have mentioned that like usually we like take over some code which is, let's say, not in a positive way designed, but like there could be some reasoning. We don't know this reasoning, and like it would make no sense to invest, like huge amount of money to write it from the scratch and make it shine and new if you don't know if this thing flies, like, so everything. And I think these kind of trade-offs, that's our job to do it, not the customer's one. We as a professional should say, if you want to do this, I can do it for this price, or this price, and these are the impacts. And you choose it. You want it fast? Okay, you're gonna probably get a mess. Or you cannot get fast without a mess, but the price will be different. Because the team would be bigger, different approach, like, but it could not be the fixed price and the stuff. And that's my favorite discussion.
Is the fast and messy way, then, and if it's let's say a conscious, intentional decision, then I think it's okay. Like if the customer is aware of the fact that in half a year or they will have to rewrite it all, and right now they're just trying to get something on the market, and they're trying to prove that their idea works and that someone actually cares about the app, and in half a year they will have to throw it all away. So if they understand this, I think it's okay to write fast and messy code.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite statement, that like it's not messy unless there is ADR for it. Because like if you publicly say we are gonna do it in this way for that reason, I think it's totally fair like to do it. But in 99%, no one writes down, so we say it's messy.
Yeah, sometimes it makes sense. I had the experience that the client was before a big investment, and he just need to like finish the new feature, and he doesn't care if it will be like refactored after 2 months or something like that. So we just do it to be sure we will like be on time, and that was it. Like it was okay in that situation.
So the second question.
During your presentation, Jan, you mentioned the checklist. And let's imagine we have like 10, 15, 20 points. But in the case we have handover with former developer or team, and we have only 1 hour, what first things you will ask from the checklist? Like what is most important information for you?
I would first of all ask for access to any external service that is used, credentials to, I don't know, Firebase, to any other external system that is integrated with it. I would definitely ask about how to run the app locally, because that's the first thing that I do. When I get a new project or new code in my hands, I clone it and I try to run it. And it's important, or I think it's crucial to be able to run the code on your local machine, because if you can't run it, you can't really tell if you broke something or if it was already broken. So the local setup. And the third thing would be release process. I would want them to, the previous team, to tell me, how do you guys make a release to production? Is there a pipeline that I just click on and it's done, or is it more of a manual process? So how do I do it? Explain it to me. So those are the 3 most important things for me: to have access to all the credentials, to all the services, to be able to run it locally, and to know how to release it. And I mean, from that point on, I could somehow manage to work on it with a lot of inefficiency, because I would have to figure everything out basically by myself. But without these 3 things, I think it wouldn't be able for me to do any work there. Do you guys have any other points?
I can just confirm what you said about the release pipeline, because I remember one client that we were working on their code that we took over, and then way too late we realized that we cannot build anything because we don't have the release keys for the build. So we did all the features they wanted, and they said, okay, now give us the app. I said, but you need to give us something. There's nothing in what you provided. We don't know what you mean. We don't have anything. And then it was lost forever. I remember that we didn't recover them, so just had to find a way. But yeah, so actually asking for this in the beginning would be saving us a lot of time, a lot of money for the client. So that's definitely something that's right.
I see.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a long panel discussion. So I will start with a little preface. So over the 10 years, I was a part of many handovers, like from the incoming, from outcoming team, both as a developer and as a leader. So I have a question for both developers and the leaders that are present here. For the leaders, how do you maintain the team morale whenever you're handing over the project? Obviously, sometimes developers tend to, like what they do. Yeah, if its project is interested specifically. So how do you manage to maintain the morale during this handover? And for the developers, how your manager could be doing something better to improve your morale over this handover? Or you just, we are not talking about a project that you don't like and just want to get rid of. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Do you mean that I'm receiving a project and I'm going to work on that?
When you're outgoing, so only when you're handing
It depends on the, I don't know, the relation with the client. Maybe I didn't want to work on that before that. So. Okay, yeah. No, some tears I will drop, and then I will have to work. I'm a professional, so yeah. I will prepare the documentation, that kind of stuff, and.
Yeah, I think that you can find some positive things on it, because I have experienced that I was part of the project for more than 5 years, and when I need to end and switch on the new project, I realized that I was so comfortable in the previous project that I lost a lot of new knowledge. So for the developers, if they are ending the project and starting the new one, it's probably the chance to do the things differently in the more modern way and move yourself further in their skills. And also it is a chance to know some new business domain, for example. So if you are working in the banking area for some time, and then you will you will start in IoT, for example, it could be also interesting for them, because there will be some new things, new technologies which they will work with, and just try to find some positive ways, and maybe they will realize that it's not so bad, because it is actually good for them and for their skills and career.
I just wanted to add that I was once in exactly this kind of situation when we were working on a project for about a year. The team was great. We had a nice relationship with the customer. We quite enjoyed working on the project, and over the year, we got rid of a lot of technical debt, and we were just starting to get into the phase when all the feature development would be just fast, thanks to little or no technical debt. And at that point, the customer told us that for budgeting reasons, they want to take over the app and establish an internal team. And it was hard for me back then and I think it was hard for other team members as well, to just work on the app or continue working on it for a month or a month and a half, knowing that after that period of time, it will not be ours to take care of anymore. And the way we thought about it was that I think it's our reputation at stake, that we want to make a good job, and I don't want to meet the customer on the street here in Karlin and hear them saying how badly we wrote the app and how it was all messed up. As the customer in this story was actually based in Karlin as well. I sometimes still meet them on the street. So we, at least from my point of view, the motivation is to really make a good job and not ruin your reputation for being a bad developer or poor professional for basically for not caring about the project anymore as for the past month or so. Thinking that, well, it will not be my responsibility. And also one motivating factor was that we already said that we're going to have a goodbye party with the customer. So that was something to look forward to. And that's pretty much how we managed to, or how we tried to keep the morale up and keep everyone motivated until the end. Because we try to do a good job, and as you have just one reputation, and if you ruin it, it's hard to get it back.
Any more questions?
I will try to ask a lighter question that will hopefully will be funny from your side. Uh, from from your experience, do you have any really fucked up handover that in the end had some kind of hidden knowledge worth memeing about?
We do. There was a bit of a hidden knowledge on one project. For example, there was we got release description of like the process how to release the app to production. So I just followed the instructions. And I built the release version of the app. I uploaded it to the App Store Connect. It was an iOS app, I think. And just before sending it for a review, I just wanted to double check it, just to see like if it actually works and if all goes well. And so I started it, and there I saw a button called something like "Copy Test Token." I was like, am I really so stupid that I built a development version of the app and uploaded it? And then I found out that there were actually two different flags that you had to turn on in order to actually make a production build. And I just turned on just one. And I had to turn on the other as well in order for the build to actually be fully production oriented application. So thank God that I double-checked before it got released. And also in such situations, we even decided with our QA engineers to switch to a bit of a different testing strategy. So in a way that all the regression testing before the release was done on production build. Because we were so scared that we are going to test something on a development build, and then the build for production from the same commit will not work for some reason, that we decided to test the individual features on dev environment, but the regression testing will be on production. And it paid off. It sounds like an anti-pattern, but it worked very well for us because we were really scared to release the app to production. And that gave us this sort of feeling of confidence when we just pushed it to all the users. And maybe one more story before I hand it over to other guys, and that's a piece of code that I saw in the code base. It was a custom exception or class that derived from or inherited from the exception class, and the exception was called something like Google account is null, and it was probably my fault. That was actually the name of the function, and it was used in the code. You could find a function where there was throw new Google account is null, and it was probably my fault exception. And there was no to-do there, like get rid of it or fix it later. It was just sitting there and actually used in the project.
Yeah, I can share one experience when we were taking over the project, and it was like that we were so focused on the code quality, which was poor, that we didn't realize that a lot of like external services which were used on the project just doesn't have testing environment, and it was pretty hard to create because it was like tough. It was connected just with one environment, and it was hard to test if we changed something. And also the second thing, it was, I just forgot. That sometimes we were in the situation that we did like a good analysis of the code, but we didn't realize that they are using some services which will be soon deprecated. So we know that we need to implement some new features, but then we need to like move the data further because we need to, for example, rid of the dynamic uplinks and other stuff and update a lot of dependencies. So that was like the massive merge request, and we were like scared how many things will stop working. But yeah, after some testing and fixed releases, it was okay. But we were late with the new functionality.
I will follow up on it because that was a project that I initially started working on, and then I handed it over to Pavel. And I remember this PR because I was not on the project anymore, but still from time to time I was giving code reviews to Pavel. And when there were just a few small PRs, I just like did the code review in a few minutes and didn't really worry about tracking the time on that project so that the client pays for it. But when I saw this big one, I said, well, this, so far it has been free, the code reviews have been free, but this one is going to cost you money. So I will track half an hour on the project to go through this. And also so that I can then attend the team building. Because if you track the hours on the project, you are part of the team and you can attend the team building. I mean, I earned it. The PR was huge. I earned the right to go to team building for reviewing it. Any stories from you guys you would like to share?
Do you have some, or I have one. We had like 2 years ago. It was not like problem in the handover, but it was near production issue, and we were creating a screen with the numpad, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, and we found out that it was for selecting the simple pin, and we found out that when you click any of these buttons, it always writes 1. So at the end, it could have happened in the production that all the pins of all the users will always be 1, and it always would succeed. But like, yeah, we caught that, and it was like close call.
That's actually good because, like, if you forget your pin, you would be right anyway. So.
I also remember there was like internal handover of one project, and it was a long time ago. Like, I don't want to even say how long because I don't know, but it was the time when code reviews were optional. So there was this one person who then like left and was like handing over the project internally. And years after, like 3-4 years, when we already did code review and everything was nice, but this code was still like there, not reviewed, we found out that if backend didn't send some specific response and something was missing, which was never missing up until that point, it showed users some, let's say, random currency for the account instead of Czech crowns. And we got it just from the client, like people are seeing pesos there, you know, instead of Czech crowns. Why is that? Why everyone has pesos in their account? Like, it's completely impossible. It's like no way this is happening. And then he found this little like bomb hidden there that the developer just at the time found it funny because it's supposed to be always from the backend. So why put anything there, right? So they just write pesos, and yeah, we noticed this like way too late, let's say. So yeah, just do code review. That's the only thing I would say. It's like the hidden knowledge there.
So, no more questions? Okay.
So I wanted to ask, I understood you do a lot of internal handovers too. So my question is, do you have any company guidelines, or can the company do anything to help this process? And is it usually effective? And if it is effective just due to the fact that it's an internal handover?
For the internal handovers, the company didn't really have any guidelines and still doesn't. It still just hopes that in a team we were going to be able to like hand over the knowledge ourselves, which luckily we are able to do that. But yeah, like the company itself doesn't really care when it's internal handover. They just expect us as a team to be able to come up with some like rules on our own. So yeah, we don't have anything internally, I think.
Do you mean by the internal handover, like onboarding of new developer, or just? Yeah, like I think we have some of these. Like our team leader has set of Confluence pages for onboarding a new member of our team, and also for like, I don't know, for this transition to new project and that kind of stuff. What needs to be done there? So it's managed mainly by our team leader, our tech lead, and hopefully the bus won't hit him tomorrow. So.
Yes, we don't have some like general checklist, but usually the platform checklist. So it's more specific because I don't know, for the backend application, the handover checklist will be different than the Android application handover. And we are trying to like be on the project for some time, which is I think the luxury which you cannot afford if you are handing over the project between the two vendors. So it's like more relaxed handover, I would say, if you are onboarding a new member or rotating someone from the team. And we are trying to like make the presentation for the new member, like show him all the code, the architecture. So it is not like reading some passive document. It's like active presentation or discussion. And then there is like also some context from the meetings which the new member is part of. And yeah, I think it's much easier to onboard a new member internally than hand over the project on different vendor.
And I'd like to add that we also noticed that these patterns vary from project to project, and we try to come up with some sort of a standard for how things are supposed to be done on projects here at Applifting. It's called Applifting Experience. Our great CTO is in charge of creating the whole, let's say, guideline or set of guidelines, and one of which is, or one part of that is the actual process of how projects are supposed to be handed over for either internally or to an external team as well. So that's some sort of an effort on our side to standardize these processes among all the projects that we do. It's not done yet. We're not there yet, but it's in progress. We're trying to set these standards so that on every project they are followed. Any team that gets into the case when they need to hand over an app, they've got this checklist that they can use and customize to their project needs. But they don't have to do all that from scratch, and so and end up in a way that the handover process is different for every project.
Okay, so thank you guys for your your experience that you shared the knowledge. I would like to say thank you to our speakers, to our guests, and also the crew that prepared the venue. And there is some food on the back that need to be finished. So if you have any more questions, let's discuss them in front of beer and the rest of the food. Thank you.